last speaker is Mr. Douglas Kwong, who is the VP of Marketing at Rave. Rave is the company that owns Pi5 for those of you who are based in Dallas and certain states where Pi5 has a presence. Prior to that, he was the Director of E-commerce and Digital Media at Payway. He was also the Director of Digital Marketing at CC's Pizza, and he's worked in hospitality, including for Hilton Worldwide, as well as Choice Hotels. Douglas, thank you so much for joining us. I know you are in the middle of reopening some of your restaurants today, and would love to hear again a little bit about the impact of COVID on your business, both on the franchise side as well as the restaurant side, and also how you guys have been shifting dollars and marketing efforts during this time.
Sure. Thanks, Amin. Let me just first start off by saying thank you for the opportunity to be here. I definitely learned a lot from each of the panelists here, and have actually been fortunate enough to work with a handful of them, including you. And it's been interesting to see how this crisis, this global crisis, has affected each of us. You know, and it's been good to be able to come back together and connect. And you know, given this team here, I feel good about our chances of coming out of it because we're all asking the right questions. But with that being said, I'll just go ahead and jump right into it. I'm going to start by, you know, kind of talking through how this whole pandemic has affected the guest. I'm not going to go into too much detail because all of us are experiencing it. All of us need to eat, so we know. I'm just going to share some data points. Then I'll go specifically into the business portion of it, and I'll answer more of your questions that you just brought up, Amin. So some of the data that we looked at gave us some insight into talking about how consumer confidence is declining, and that's no surprise. But the interesting thing about the underlying support behind the data is showing that there is a little bit of optimism because this economic event is actually self-imposed by global governments everywhere. And it was asked by this company named Data Essentials. They're a consumer research company that does a lot of work in the food service space. You know, Natalie probably gets some data from them as well. They asked the question to a few of their respondents spread out over the country: are you more concerned with an economic event or a health event? And 60% of them said that they were more concerned about the public health. So, you know, they're looking at this and more about, you know, trying to take care of themselves versus, you know, worrying about their wallets. And actually got some data from the chief economist from Coke, who was noticing kind of the same things. If you look at the measurements of how you evaluate economic health, it's really two main factors. One is your own personal wealth, and two is your willingness to spend. And even though, you know, it was covered a little bit earlier how there's so many unemployment claims right now, wealth in general is tighter, but it's not as bad as it's been before in previous, you know, economic events before in the past. I think the thing that people are most concerned with now are the willingness to spend. So even though people may have money, or at least they may have some set aside, they don't know how the economy is going to respond to businesses reopening. So there's a lot of caution there. But the wealth is although it's a little bit tighter, it's not dwindling to where it was back in, you know, 2008, 2001, and those types of things. So, you know, when we look at purchase habits and how this affected everybody at the beginning, as dining rooms began to close and more news came out about this, grocery stores blew up, dining rooms had to close, and over time, people began to sort of exhaust all of the recipes that they had at home. And we've actually seen in our businesses, both for Pi5, our fast casual business, and Pizza Inn, our pizza buffet business, they've actually kind of endured a lot of this and weathered the storm. We're actually lucky that we're in the pizza business because we were able to transition pretty easily to curbside and to go, as Natalie kind of touched on earlier. And we actually launched a brand new concept called the contactless buffet to go, where you add more choice and variety to guests, kind of giving them that whole buffet feel and the buffet value proposition in the safety and comfort of their own home. So, you know, over time, people were more and more just trying to either eat out or get out of the house and begin to order out more. And it's actually served us well. Now, I'm not gonna paint the picture that it's, you know, we're doing great and it's all, rainbows. We're growing absolutely in our online ordering business, but it's not enough to offset what we're doing for dine-in. We were just well positioned to be able to keep our restaurants open, and that's a huge win. One thing that I think is important to talk about is Natalie mentioned that a lot of states are beginning to reopen, and some of the data that we've seen suggests that consumers feel like it's a little too early. Now, here in Texas, we actually had Colleyville open at the end of last weekend, but it was for patio seating only. And people were just stir crazy, and they flocked to all the restaurants that had patio service just to be able to get out of their house and enjoy a meal. And largely, I think we're going to see kind of two split groups. There's going to be one group that'll go out and they'll dine cautiously, which I think will be predominantly what's going to happen. And then there's going to be another group that's just going to, kind of say, okay, it's open. I'm going to go back to life as normal. But the data that we've seen suggests that more people will go out, but they're going to retain their precautionary measures. The good thing about that, though, is people understand, I think, how important restaurants are to their local economies and to the global economy in general. And there is motivation to go out there and help businesses recover. So there's a lot of talk about, once restaurants begin to open, if they take the right precautionary steps and create a responsible and safe environment, they want to go out and create more business for the restaurants to help them recover. So with all that being said, I think from a guest perspective, in summary, it's viewed as more of a health crisis for now. And even though money's tighter, there's optimism, but it's going to take me into the next point, which is, the visual cleanliness is going to be extremely important for operators and how they think about reopening the business. It's absolutely going to fundamentally change, especially with a lot of states requiring things like masks if you're out in public, or social distancing is absolutely going to be a thing. We've actually implemented a few of those changes at some of our restaurants. So tomorrow, we're going to have all of our DFW restaurants, with the exception of a couple, one's in a mall and another's on a college campus. All of them are going to be opening up with these precautionary measures in place, where we're going to make sure that all team members are wearing gloves, all team members are wearing masks, all team members are going to have their temperature checked before they start their shift. We're going to shut down the drink station so there's no communal area and there's less interaction, I think, for people to, go and congregate around. And we're also going to serve all of our pizzas in boxes. So regardless of whether you order for dine-in or takeout, your pizza is going to come in a box to make sure that there's that added closure for your food. The other things that we're doing is we're implementing decals on the floor, not necessarily for direction, because it's pretty clear what direction you need to go to order your food and get your food, but more so for social distancing and spacing. We want to make sure that we keep all team members and guests safe by keeping proper distance apart from each other. We're also putting in more sanitizing stations across the restaurant dining rooms, as well as adhering to the local guidelines of Texas, which said that dining rooms can be open, but at 25% capacity. So we're moving things around in the dining room to make sure guests aren't too close to each other, to make sure we adhere to those guidelines. Now, again, I think one thing that's going to be important is making sure you service the guests where they're going to be looking for you. Not everybody's going to flock into the restaurant. I think one concern is, if we're opening the dining room, is that an incremental guest, or is that somebody who had been ordering online with you for a while and then just decides to come in? Now, either way, restaurants are going to want the business for sure, but it's just kind of one of the things that we're thinking about as we open up the doors to our restaurants. So the other thing that we're looking at as well is potentially putting in, some plexiglass at registers and doing some things to protect team members as well. But in summary, restaurants are going to recognize that the guest concern over health will likely remain as the business is open. So the operational updates are going to have to really kind of be in your face. I mean, think about it from the perspective of a guest. When you go to the grocery store, that those carts are cleaned and sanitized, based on, how they're communicating with guests, or at least, you kind of hope they are. But there's something to be said about, the peace of mind you get when you visually see somebody spraying down and wiping down the cart handles before they hand it to you. It's going to be the same thing in the restaurants. People are going to need to see sort of the in-your-face changes in order to feel safe. The other thing that I think is going to be really important as well is the tech stack. It's going to be more important now than ever. So things like online ordering, loyalty, and even the back of house technology is going to need to be really important and streamlined, because labor is most likely going to go up in the restaurants. We're going to have to make sure that we take advantage of take care of guests to the team members' advantage in a way that keeps them safe. So, all the things that Natalie had spoken about earlier with, trying to go into Uber Eats and DoorDash and Postmates, that actually works out well for our business model in QSR and fast casual, because it helps us to expand our commerce platform. If you think about, we want people to come to us and be able to order directly. That's the first thing we need to take care of. But the second thing is, whenever somebody opens up the DoorDash app or the Uber Eats app, we want them to be able to see us so that they can consider our brand for food or for dining if they wouldn't have before. So we're also looking at, kind of those platforms as well to enhance our sort of incrementality and visibility. So, that was kind of a quick and dirty way of how we're looking at it. I didn't want to take up too much time because I know Natalie already touched on a lot of the food service space, but that's just kind of how we're viewing it from the fast casual and QSR segment. So with that, I'll go and pass it back over to you, Amin.
Thank you so much, Doug, for going over. And so as far as marketing goes, I know you guys probably had to kind of shift more towards running ads, to promote your your online ordering, your buffet. Were you shifting more like dollars towards social, or what kind of channels did you guys put in more of the efforts into?
Yeah, it was mostly towards social, but it was based on what we'd known before, how our guests reacted to us. So we dabbled a little bit in paid search, dabbled a little bit in display, and dabbled a little bit in social media. And social media tended to give us the best return, the best engagement, the best response. So once everything happened and budgets began to, kind of dwindle away, we pushed that all towards social, and obviously focused the message on to-go delivery and takeout. And it was mostly built around awareness. In the pizza space, it can get really dangerous if you start to try to play the game of, value, because Domino's, Pizza Hut, and Papa John's will just destroy anybody that tries to move into that space. That's what caused us to, kind of have to move towards this contactless buffet to go program. So we really did things where we pushed more towards awareness, contactless buffet to go, things where we could be, sort of differentiated, and not try to do too much of the, kind of dealing to play in the space of Domino's.
Got it. Perfect. The last question that I have for you is, how are you letting your customers know what your new policies look like?
It's really interesting. As we think about, how the state guidelines are kind of playing a huge factor in how restaurants reopen, we're mainly just going to open the doors, see how guests react, see if, we need to change some things to make them feel safer, see, what team members are saying, and get franchisee feedback. But we're really not planning on doing a big marketing push until the social distancing guidelines ease up. Because what we don't want to have happen is we push too much traffic into the restaurants, and we can't let them in the building, and it just creates this bad experience. So really what we're trying to do is just open up the doors, test the water, see what happens, and then we'll begin to pump in a little bit more marketing as states ease their social distancing guidelines and regulations. And then once they're done and then they're out of the way, then I think, at that point it's, getting back to the plan of, instilling our value proposition and doing some brand positioning work.
Great. Awesome. Thank you so much, Doug, for joining us today. I know, again, you were very busy today giving interviews, and I really appreciate you taking the time to join us.
Thanks, Amin.